I'm Mark Mitchell, and this is workshop number 4 of going from good to great with the Girllustrators. Going from good to great with the Girllustrators, and I'm so excited. We're all so excited to have Rebecca Sherman here with us. Rebecca is has even prepared some notes. She's done some thinking, and we're gonna get to pick her brain tonight. It's so exciting, as well as hear her wonderful critique. And she's been looking at these images of yours for a few days now, and so it's going to be real exciting to hear what she says. Hi, Rebecca.
Hi. Hi.
Rebecca Sherman with the Writers House Agency, the famous Writers House Agency, certainly one of the prestige agencies of them all in the country, maybe the world. I'm going to go ahead and introduce Rebecca right now. She'll let me put her up, and then we'll let Rebecca teach her class, our class. I've sent you out the link many times to the agency. Writers House is a leading full-service literary agency that offers the many resources that a large company and the personal attention of a small agency. And if you've ever peeked inside through photographs or whatever into their offices, you kind of see that right away. It's a historic old home in, where is it, Rebecca? Downtown Manhattan. Yeah, and right there, man, it looks like it's a holdover from the Gilded Age. It's beautiful. Rebecca is one of the senior agents there, and very well known, one of the top agents there. She's been there 14 years. She's built a list of dynamic, and more than 15 years.
Oh, it's a little dated. That's on me.
Update me as we go then. Okay.
17 years last week.
17 years. Oh, it's time for an update on that listing there. 17 years. Put the list together, dynamic and award-winning picture book illustrators and author illustrators, as well as middle grade and young adult novelists. And you can go to her, you can go to the website, click on a link that will tell you everything that she's looking for. One of the things that attracted us, besides to Rebecca, besides being Vanessa's agent, is Rebecca takes a real interest in illustrators and author illustrator packages. And so we love talking to agents like that. They have a lot of insight into the market, and she can speak to that, the changing dynamics and the changing market for author illustrator combo packages. It's going to be so exciting. I can't wait. But let me tell you who she's kind of, well, maybe all these comments are sort of dated too, Rebecca. The ones about what you're kind of looking for, what you're excited about. Back in the day, middle grade fiction was the arrow that went straight to the bullseye of your literary heart. Still the case?
Sure. I love me some picture books, but there's something really about middle grade, and I love highly illustrated middle grade. So it pertains to this talk.
Okay, that all pertains. She's equally excited by contemporary stories. She has a soft spot for fresh retellings and inventive folklore, fairy tales. Occasionally, she falls for character-driven historical fiction set in seldom explored settings. She's looking for books with something to say, books that make her laugh. I should be reading this in her voice, in her quote. Books that make me laugh, and characters that truly remind me of how confounding and wonderful, ridiculous, frightening, glorious adolescence can be. I enjoy contemporary stories of young love and growing up. She's not so interested in fantasy, science fiction submissions. She loves picture books as well.
I love
them. She represents. Actually, let me run to the.
I can tell you.
Okay, yes, tell us, because that part got cut off on my page. Thanks, Rebecca, and welcome. We're so excited.
Thank you. Well, I can start with some people that I represent. Sorry for the fidgeting. I'll try not to fidget. I'd be happy to tell you some people that I represent, some people that I've represented for a very long time. I represent Dan Selmary, the illustrator of Dragons Love Tacos. I represent Grace Lynn, the author-illustrator of Where the Mountain Meets the Moon and the recently released A Big Mooncake for Little Star. I represent Jarrett J. Krasowska, who just today was named on the National Book Award for young people's literature long list with his graphic memoir, a very YA graphic memoir, Hey Kiddo, but is also known for the Lunch Lady series. And I'm going to, we won't use the word blame, but I'm going to explain the reason that some of this presentation might be read with my face down, ooh, the roots, it might be read because today, as you can imagine, when I, told myself I would really memorize a lot of this and get off book, as they say in theater, today was very busily spent celebrating the National Book Awards long list. So those are a few of my author illustrator clients. Dan Salmieri also is an author illustrator. His book Baron Wolf came out last year, and I'd be happy forever and ever and always to talk about my clients, but let's get into some of what I prepared to tell you guys about, which will be a little bit more about me, but a lot about how I work and Writer's House, and specifically how I have worked with Vanessa. And I want to say, to reiterate what Mark has said, it's so rare that I get to speak just to a group of illustrators, that I get to really focus on talking about how I work with illustrators. Most often at conferences and other opportunities like this, I'm speaking with authors and illustrators, and I feel like those events really tend to be more geared towards the authors, and I have to kind of catch up and be like, I'm the illustrator person. So I'm just thrilled that this is an opportunity to speak.
Oh, we're thrilled too.
Speak the same language.
Yeah, that's great.
So yes, I worked at Writer's House for 17 years, and the vast majority of my client list consists of author illustrators and illustrators. And before I talk about some of the illustrations that you guys have created, and then hopefully have time for Q&A, let me tell you even more about myself and Writer's House and the way that I work. I know that Vanessa, my client and your fellow SCBWI Austin member, the Girllustrators, I'm trying to say that, so just roll.
Good job.
She talked to you in the last Google Hangout. So I just want to explain from my point of view how we work together. And I'm hoping, I did write this up before I watched some of her chat. I'm hoping, though, that I don't repeat too much of what she said, so you guys don't drift. But I'm also hoping that I don't contradict what she said. So I'm trying to find that balance, that middle place. And what I hope you'll see, again, is my version, my perspective of the client-agent story. Let me say very clearly at the beginning, and the heart of my work as a literary agent is that I represent illustrators in the business of books. And when I refer to illustrators, that includes author illustrators. Illustration should be your talent, skill, what you work at, your area of expertise. I don't expect illustrators to be experts at the business. Here's the deal. As an agent, I'll be the expert on the business. Now, don't ask me to draw anything that you can recognize. That's your expertise. I'll stick to the business. You might have gone to art school. You might be self-taught. You might be some combination of the two. No matter what, you put in time working on your art before getting to the point when you're ready to submit to agents. I put in time working on learning how to be an agent before I was one. I was an assistant at Writer's House for 5 years.
Oh.
Felt like an eternity, but now at 17, it went by pretty quickly. So I always put this part into a talk I give in part to say, be nice to the assistants. They hold the keys to the kingdom, and Mark will attest that I would not have even made it onto this without my assistant Allie's help.
Yay, Allie! Yes, she's been so nice.
So a few of those clients that I mentioned earlier, Jared J. Krasowska, Grace Lynn, also Matt Phelan, they're clients that I took on when I was an assistant, when I was still assisting a senior agent and was a junior agent. So again, I think this helps you see the duration of the client-agent relationship, but also, do not be afraid of the young new agents. We have some great talent in that regard at Writer's House, again, including my assistant, Allie, whose name will appear on the Writer's House site as Alexandra love it. So giving those examples of Matt, Jarrett, and Grace, you can imagine that representing the likes of them and the others that I've signed in the 12 years since keeps me very busy. Here's something that prospective clients, maybe some of you, don't like to hear. My commitment is to my clients, not the potential clients. I've signed agency agreements with clients, and we agents take our contracts very seriously. Ask yourself, why are you looking for an agent? Would you want to ever wonder if your agent wasn't getting work done for you because they're spending too much time looking for the next great thing? Of course not. But do you want some good news? Well, I only see potential author submissions after Allie has vetted them and thinks that I will be interested. I take a look at all of the illustrator submissions. After taking a look at an illustration, I know very quickly if I'm interested or not. One example. In June of 2016, I received a mailer of postcards from several SCBWI Austin illustrators. They called themselves the Girllustrators. I should tell you, you do not have to send a physical submission to get an agent's attention. An email submission as an illustrator with a link to an online portfolio will work just as well, but in this case, I had postcards. I don't like to have my desk too cluttered. And so I quickly picked up those postcards and looked through and picked out Vanessa's from the pile. I then went to her website. So again, just as well if it all came by email and digitally. I went to her website and then her blog. Then I had my then assistant, Andrea, reach out to Vanessa. Please note, if you hear from the assistant first, it's not a bad sign. This is the email that my former assistant, Andrea Morrison, still a junior agent at Writer's House as well, and someone you should definitely consider, sent to Vanessa on Saturday, June 18th, 2006. Yes, she was working on a Saturday in the summer. Dear Vanessa, thank you so much for sending the packet of postcards our way! Exclamation point. I work with Rebecca Sherman here at Writer's House, and we very much like your work. We'd love to see more of the wordless picture book on your blog and Zebra Cadabra from your site. And of course, if there's anything else you'd like to share, that would be wonderful! Exclamation point. Please do send any material along if and when you're ready, and please do let us know if you receive interest / any offers of representation from other agents. Looking forward to hearing from you. All best wishes, Andrea. There are several noteworthy things in this email. That wordless picture book became Vanessa's not at all wordless picture book debut, Lucy and the String. When you submit to agents, if you have any intention of working on an author-illustrator book in the near future, you should have that dummy ready to send should the agent get in touch and request. But not every illustrator wants to write as well. Many of my clients are illustrators only. Even more start out illustrating other people's manuscripts and then later in their career write and illustrate their own work. Again, if you know you have an author-illustrator idea that you want to pursue with an agent, you should not solicit agents and send queries until you feel that that dummy is ready to your liking and you have a solid online portfolio ready to share. With me, Vanessa avoided sending a formal query, but this is an exception, not the rule. The query is very important, and I can answer some questions about querying if we have time later. Still, when Vanessa's postcard went out, there were dummies she was ready to share with me. And once I had the chance to review the dummies, I responded to Vanessa directly. And here is what I wrote to her on July 27th. Vanessa, thank you so much for sending these dummies on to us at Writer's House. After a bit of trial and error, I'm so glad that Andrea was able to track you down so that I can tell you what a fan I am of your illustration. It can be a real challenge to find a children's book artist who's able to render both animals and kid characters in ways that endear and warm the heart, while also reading as bold and full of humor. I'm also impressed by your range. You're capable of creating a book like The String, in which two characters tell the whole story, and a book like Zebra Cadabra, which has a much richer, fully realized world. Having said that, I think there's a good amount of work that needs to be done to revise both dummies. I'm an agent who works editorially with my clients, especially those who have not been published as author illustrators, to make the submissions as strong as possible. If you feel that the following feedback is valuable, my hope is that you would revise and send these projects back to me. If you feel that we do not have a similar vision for these books, I wish you the best of luck in finding the right representation for your work. And then I sent her almost 2 pages of single-spaced notes on 2 picture book dummies. 2 pages of notes doesn't mean that she sent me bad dummies that needed a lot of fixing. It means she sent me great material that I believed I could help her make better. It's more and more important to submit the strongest possible work to publishers so that they fall completely in love with the project and cannot say no, and will do everything that they are able to do to convince everyone at their publishing house that the project is a good investment for their company. Working editorially with clients is still very much a part of the business of books, and I believe wholeheartedly that working editorially with an author illustrator is good business strategy. I've seen it pay off. I'm going to give clients and potential clients all of my ideas for improving a project if I think it will help that project to sell and sell well. I also go through the editorial process before offering representation to see how the illustrator responds to feedback. If there are elements of their work that they rightfully stand by instead of blindly trying to cram in every edit I suggest, and overall to get a better sense of their personality and if they play well with others. It's essential the agent-client relationship is trusting and sound as we prepare to work together for the duration of our careers. After I sent the 2 pages of notes to Vanessa, she responded, thanking me and letting me know she would dive into revision. In another email soon after, she also let me know that she had sent a submission before I had reached out to her to my colleague, Steve Malk. You should never submit to 2 agents at Writers House at the same time. But Vanessa didn't. She submitted to Steve, and I reached out to her. She did 100% the right thing in letting me know and being honest. It allowed Steve and I to work it out amongst ourselves. You should always be honest in the process and expect agents to be honest as well. Similarly, I implore potential clients to let agents know if another agent is interested or has offered representation, and to allow all agents to whom they submitted appropriate time to respond. So after that email, Vanessa and I went through several rounds of revision. You might have heard something about that in her talk. Lucy and the String went from a wordless book to a rhymed book, which I do not recommend, and I don't have the time to recount all the reasons, including how much we micromanaged the little details, like the difference between 10-gallon hat and cowboy hat in the scan of the and then after that, it went to a book without rhyme anyway, but with a wonderful read aloud rhythm. 2 months from Vanessa responding to my very long email with the first revision notes, 2 months after that, I offered representation. During all that work, she was doing it on spec. And then I sent her the agency agreement. That's when we reached the beginning.
The beginning.
On October 10th, her portfolio was added to the Writers House art site for illustrator clients who are not ready to present an author illustrator work. The inclusion on the Writers House art site, which is www.writershouseart.com. And I suggest you look at it, but not right now, because you'll be lost for hours and hours in the amazing art there. So for those illustrator-only clients, this is a very big step. And I use the occasion of everything going up, their portfolio going up on the larger Writers House Art site, as the opportunity to email art directors, designers, and editors that I work with to let them know of the new author-agent relationship. Mark, if you could do
Yes, give me a second to.
I'm going to show you an example of one of these emails that I send around to a very, very, very long list of editors with whom I work. Hello. Wow, that's like an MC Escher thing.
That's weird, isn't it?
It was cool. That's not the thing I send around. Sorry, guys, that's your work. I'm not there.
Can you see it now on your screen?
This one is actually, I went out of order. My bad. So it's the third one that I'm talking about.
Okay.
Yep.
The PDF.
No, one more. The door. I'm pointing like you can see that one. Okay. So this is truncated a little. I hope everyone, there we go. I hope everyone can see. So this is the kind of email that I send out when I take on a client who is either an illustrator only or their dummy is not ready to go out, you know, almost immediately after I take them on. So we'll get it back up. But
yes, I'm just gonna make sure they can see.
No worries, I'm gonna keep going.
Okay, great.
I hope what you can see, and you'll see again, is the email is designed with an image of one of the client's images right there in the body of the email. So the subject line will say something like, introducing Michaela Prevost is one of my clients with a book coming out in March called Let's Have a Dog Party. So they'll open the email, and right there immediately they'll see illustration, which is very important, I think, and entices them to then go onto the Writers House site and see the whole portfolio. So in addition to the image, which is front and center, and that great visual, the email in this case says, dear editor, I of course personalize it, or I don't send to every individual one at a time. It would take forever. But it'll say something like, dear Viking friends, and I'll send it to all the editors who work on illustrated material and art directors and designers at Viking in that email, and on and on. So, dear Viking friends, I'm happy to share the news that I've welcomed illustrator Michaela Prevost to my client list. Michaela's vibrant art, which recalls the work of David Roberts, Marla Frazee, and Abby Hamlin, warmly captures the energy, sometimes frenetic and charmingly distracted, of the active child. Her characters are inviting, memorable, and stand out even amidst detail-rich environments. Michaela's illustration always shows the child's perspective on their world, which keeps her art whimsical and authentic to her audience, young readers. Michaela is a previous Don Freeman Memorial Grant recipient and an active SCBWI member. A California native, she now lives in Arizona with her husband and 3 children. I welcome you to Michaela's portfolio on the Writers House site here. A link to further images on her site and blog can be found there. Her Instagram is @MichaelaPrevost. Please keep Michaela in mind for manuscripts as they come through. Even better, if you already have acquired a text for which you believe Michaela is the right illustrator, send it on. No matter what, feel free to drop me a line to say that you are a fan of Michaela's work. An agent always welcomes fan mail. All my best, Rebecca.
Wow.
That is the introductory email. Hold on, I take a water. Okay. So,
do you want to?
Yeah, I'm going to talk a little more about.
Okay. Let me stop.
Yeah, we can go back. Hi. So I send this email to solicit manuscripts and work for illustrator clients to illustrate, and also to see who's a fan of the client's work. And I catalog that, of course. I file it away. It helps me choose editors to submit dummies to in the future. I didn't send out an email like that for Vanessa because a week after her portfolio went up on October 18th, we submitted Lucy and the String to editors. Please know that Vanessa we did a lot of work and then it was ready to go. Please know that Vanessa was consulted about the images that went up on the Writers House portfolio site as well. And she was consulted about the editors before we submitted for Lucy. Nothing that I do in representing a client is done without the client's knowledge. I'm happy to talk more about how I choose the editors that I submit any given project to if we have time in Q&A. So now let's share that letter starting.
Great.
So again, even more so than my design of the introductory emails, I like to send for author illustrator clients a design submission. So that first with the little girl, that's Lucy. So this for Vanessa's submission letter, this was in the body of the email when the editors we selected, and again, it's personalized. That is her editor. I didn't choose that one out of nowhere. So it said, "Dear Kate Harrison, Lucy wants you to click on the attachment above." And now, Mark, if we can go to that next. Then, so the first thing in the PDF was this image. Do you see the string? Do you want to give it again, we had a little more rhyme at this point. Do you see the string? Do you want to give it a tug, a tow, a pull, a heave, a yank? You can scroll down, please, Mark.
Whoops.
It's okay. And this is the submission letter. So you can see it's very designed. So Vanessa was very involved. So let me read this submission letter. "You found a string and a letter. How lucky. Next time you find a string, remember, a string could also be attached to something or someone, and it's very possible that someone could be a bear. Lucy found a string and did just what you did, and that led to one very embarrassed, pantless bear. Luckily for Hank, Lucy is wildly inventive and won't let him be without an outfit for long." Lucy and the String is a heartfelt and gorgeous debut by author-illustrator Vanessa Rader. Armed with lyrical text and two lovable characters, the story maximizes humor through expression and physicality. Lucy and the String brings together cause and effect while also bringing together unlikely friends. I take on very few picture book clients and set the bar for those clients very high. I'm confident that young readers and their parents will want to revisit the push and pull between Hank and Lucy night after night. Lucy and the String is a cross between Flora and the Flamingo and extra yarn, a combination I find impossible to resist. I am also smitten with Vanessa's next project, Zebra Cadabra, about Gus, a zebra magician with a disappearing act that is very successful in the wild and who then wants to test his skills in the big city. Dummy available upon request. Vanessa Rader's work has been featured in Highlights Magazine and on Apartment Therapy. The portfolio received the grand prize at the 2016 Austin SCBWI conference. She lives in Austin, Texas with her husband, 3 kids, and her dog. It is my pleasure to introduce you to Vanessa's work and to Hank and Lucy. I look forward to hearing your thoughts. Best, Rebecca. All right.
Wow.
That's the letter. So there were passes, but there was also a lot of interest in Lucy and the String. And when it became clear that there would be more than 2 offers, I began to prepare for an auction. We had 4 bidders: Dial, Abrams, Knopf at Random House, and Harper. Here's the language that I sent to the publishers about the auction and its rules. We'll have to find that. Okay, I got it. Dear editor, thank you so much for your enthusiasm for Lucy and the String. Vanessa and I so appreciate your confidence in this project. Your response to her would-be debut is as heartwarming as the comfort of a homemade sweater or a new friendship. With confirmation of 4 offers/houses participating and the possibility of 1 or 2 more joining, we'll be closing on Vanessa Rader's Lucy and the String by Monday, November 7th. Please email your best bid by 10 a.m. Eastern. And just so you know, I sent this out on Thursday, so it's not like I sent it Sunday night. By 10 a.m. Eastern, earlier is fine too. You're bidding on world rights plus audio rights. As with all author-illustrator picture books, we will retain dramatic rights, non-dramatic video rights, and merchandising rights. Your bid should include these terms: number of books, advance per book, payout, royalties, hardcover, paper, board book, and ebook, bonuses, if any, confirmation of separate accounting if you're bidding on more than 1 title, confirmation of mutual agreement on title, confirmation of mutual agreement on cover art, confirmation of meaningful consultation on cover design, number of author copies of hardcover and paperback, number of agent copies of hardcover and paperback, option language. If you have a projected pub season, please let us know. Please note that I reserve the right to negotiate terms. Vanessa will then make her decision based on all these factors. Hopefully I haven't left any loose strings. If so, please let me know if you have any questions. Otherwise, just shoot me an email to let me know that you received these rules. Best, Rebecca.
Wow.
So there are a lot of great stories of 10 participant auctions, but only one editor can acquire the book in the end. Whether in preempt, at auction, or with a single interested party, the agent's job is to negotiate the best deal for her client. This doesn't just mean the highest advance. It's the agent's job to decide which rights to be kept when there is leverage to keep them, and to know what royalty rates, payouts, subsidiary rights splits, bonuses, and on their client should get. Again, no decision is ever made without the client, and the client is kept up to date throughout the process. If we have time in Q&A and there are further questions, I know I threw a lot in there. Let's not get too detailed and asking exactly what her royalty rates are. But if there is time and people have questions, we can talk more about this part of the submission process, negotiation, auctions, etc. So I won't tell you what those offers were, but I will tell you that the decision wasn't easy. We had in the mix an offer for 3 books that we turned down for another offer, the offer from Dial for 2 books, for example. So as you know from Vanessa's talk and the sample submission email, Lucy and the String was just published by Dial Books for Young Readers, an imprint of Penguin Random House, and I did bring a copy. This is my personal bookshelves. I don't see any children's titles. All the children's stuff's at work, reference to, but I did bring this home.
Yes.
So I can hold it up. It's a real book. So it was published by Dial, and it was edited by Kate Harrison. Here's something you might already know too. Kate Harrison is also the editor of Dragons Love Tacos, which I sold as the representative of illustrator Dan Salmieri. I tend to work with the same people again and again, and I would bet most agents can say the same. Think about it. If you have similar taste with a particular editor, it only makes sense as an agent to submit to them again and again. Know that the industry is smaller than it may seem, particularly when you are submitting picture books and want to submit to the best editors for that format. The relationship between client and agent is ongoing, but so is the relationship between editor and agent. The business is at its best when we all work as a team. After working editorially with my clients before submission, I take a back seat once the book has been acquired. Yes, there's likely, and in Vanessa's case, she can attest, more revision to be done, and the relationship with the editor should succeed as a result. At this point in the book's life, I still want to be copied on emails and kept up to date on drafts. I remain an email or phone call away if there is anything that the client would like to discuss. If time allows, we can talk more about it, but I hope everyone already knows that getting a book out into the market is also a team effort. In part, it's the agent's job to encourage the publisher to promote the book as much as possible and in the best ways possible. The agent can help the client to review publicity and marketing plans, and we can help encourage the client to promote in the ways that are most effective and suited to her. I'm not sure how much Vanessa shared her publicity for Lucy and the String, but I know she had a local Book People launch party. She went on a blog tour. She promoted the book on social media, etc. I've shared a lot of the story of how Vanessa and I work together, and have worked together, and I hope you'll agree it's a success story. I like to summarize what I do this way. I help great people make great books, but I can't help every great person make great books. So I know there might be some questions before we go into looking at your images, but I just do want to say, if we don't get a chance to talk about your piece, it doesn't mean that I didn't think it was good. It might mean that I didn't have time to get to it. It might mean that I would say the same thing I would say about somebody else's piece. And if I do give criticism, it doesn't mean that another agent would feel the same way. Just as I described the specifics of my working relationship with Vanessa, in hopes that you can take away general information about how I work with clients, my objective in talking about the 10 pieces that I've chosen to talk about is, my hope is that I will talk about specifics in one piece and it can be used for that person generally, but also for everyone generally. And remember, I'm looking at these images from a business perspective first and foremost. So I see it as an exercise. It's not exactly how I evaluate work that's submitted to me. Certainly, there's a lot that just goes on internally, and does it appeal to me or does it not? I don't analyze everything in the same way. When it comes into me, this is a heightened simulation. So just ignore that. So, Mark,
Yeah, great. That's wonderful. No, that is just amazing to hear. And I do have one start off question just to get the ball rolling, and that is, what, Rebecca, attracted you and Allie and then you to Andrea to Vanessa's portfolio in the first place, and her images, and then particularly the images that you thought could make a story.
Right. I'm trying to remember, because I haven't looked at whatever was her portfolio then. Almost 2 years.
Yeah.
But I think that something that struck me certainly was how dynamic, as I said also prior, how dynamic her characters were, and that there was humor evident and humorous story evident, but also very heartwarming connection between characters and even individually, the character of Zebra Cadabra, who hopefully will end up in a book at some point. He's not book 2, as it turns out. That there was an emotional response, and I think that is somewhat of, I'll talk a little bit about that, but I think that is the difference in how I evaluate things when they're coming through, and when my bar, the bar is very high, where am I approaching someone? Am I getting involved in that conversation? And so there has to be an emotional response from me, that there's something, it makes me feel.
Yeah. And then a confidence, it sounds like, that you could expect to see more of that in that artist's images.
Yeah, and the first email that Andrea sent, and I'll be honest, also maybe insider secret, kind of, I have my assistant reach out initially in case, in part it's just to save time. I got a lot going on. But in part because if they say, no, I don't have a dummy, or it's a character I'm working on, but I'm not there yet. When I reach out to potential clients, which is different than, they should certainly have ready however they want to proceed most immediately with what they want to work on, even if it's Illustrator only. They should have that ready if they approach me, if they query me. When I'm approaching a client, I will most often have my assistant get in touch first, in case they say, I don't really know what you saw something in my Instagram, but I don't know what I want to do with children's books, or no, I don't have a dummy ready. So there's something I saw in the portfolio, and I saw characters that I felt like had stories to tell. But if Andrea got in touch and Vanessa said, I'm not ready, or I don't have a dummy, then I would have had to ask myself, okay, do I feel strongly enough to pursue representation based on portfolio and potential alone? Or would I say, let me know if somebody reaches out and offers representation, but I want to wait until you send me the dummy when you have it ready. She had something ready to share.
Boy, if we're not getting the message about it.
I'm sorry. I could answer very quickly, maybe in another lifetime.
Well, if we're not getting the message I mean, certainly have your dummies ready.
You should be happy with and confident in what you're sending when you're reaching out to an agent. So often there is one shot. So be confident that if it's a no, it's because you and the agent weren't a match, not because you haven't presented the best of what you have to offer and what you feel
yeah.
at a stage that you're not that you never want to edit it again, because again, there will be work with certainly with me as an agent or a writer's house agent, and with an editor, but that you're ready for that next step of working with someone.
Very good. Great. Well, and so partial dummies, maybe not such a good idea.
Well, I also, I mean, we didn't go through it. It's if we want to go back to it, it is on the same email after the submission letter. You can see what the dummy that Vanessa and I sent. I don't know if she showed it already. It's pretty fully realized. And I do ask clients, especially if they're looking, they haven't been published as an author illustrator before. Every client, when we sign up the third, fourth, second even book with the same editor, it's not a full dummy with a full, color image necessarily. But I look for a fully sketched dummy and one full color spread before I submit to publishers. I think the more that you can help publishers see what the final book will be and not have them guessing, can you get to that stage, the better. I mean, it should not be, nobody should spend time on 32 pages of acrylics before
right.
One spread, at least fully in full color, and pretty fully realized sketches for an unpublished author illustrator, I think what's necessary. And I think submitting that to an agent is probably also the right way to go.
Great. Vanessa is here with us tonight, and she commented. She commented that those notes you gave her, they were great notes. She says with an exclamation point, and then she said in your messages, she said, I love all of the language Rebecca used in each email to tie in the book's theme, and I did too. Of course, that was a wonderful query letter, as if you'd been the author yourself.
I really feel I'm not trying to take any of the glory away from the clients by any means, but I'm a businesswoman. I'm selling a product. It's harsh, but that product is not a plastic bottle. It's not technology. I don't know why these are why I'm showing you examples, but the product has life in it. It has energy. I want to let editors know. I want to give them a taste of the product that I'm asking them to buy off the bat. I want to entice them. I mean, again, this is where I start to turn a little, more on the business, but it's strategic. It's not, if a byproduct is that I get to be creative or crib some of my clients' creativity and their tone and their language, that's far secondary. It is strategic to make something pop, because editors get a lot of submissions. Just sending an email with black and white text, black text, white background. When I'm showing something that has images, why wouldn't I work with the client to design it so that they see the image right away? It's all very intentional, and I wasn't reading it aloud to pat myself on the back, but to give a sense of how that is a part of my business strategy.
And it felt so effortless and easy.
As it should.
As it should, yeah.
It should seem just as effortless and easy to the editor who's acquiring to see how they would pitch this. Then, I mean, it's also used as a tool. A good letter, the editor then uses that language in in an acquisitions meeting. I want to give them, as I have a case where publicity is using language from a submission letter, going out and soliciting, um, articles and soliciting publicity. Like, that's great. If this letter travels, I'm not saying it has to or often travels
Yeah.
that far, but good. I want to give as much material as possible to make the acquisition easy, to make, everything on their end to hand over so that there aren't, roadblocks, there aren't reasons for them to say, no, we don't know how we would market this. We don't know
Mhm.
what the core of this is. We don't know how we would pitch it.
Mm.
Let me lay the groundwork very early. I mean, the client, of course, is laying the groundwork and creating the dummy, but let me help that even more in showing how to pitch
Mhm.
as I pitch. And it should, there should be energy and life in that.
You're taking on the mantle of the author, the publisher, the public relations firm,
I mean,
publicity firm.
I am the, I think, as I said, it works best if everybody is on the same team.
Yeah.
However, only the agent is representing that client for the duration and not just book by book. And so it's not Hollywood where there's a manager and that
Yeah.
the actor hires the publicist and the manager and the agent and the business like, we are all of those things. So
Yeah.
we take that all on.
What Diana's asking, is your representation ongoing? I think you've answered this maybe before, but is it or does it end after the 2 or 3 books are produced, or is there a designated period of time?
Yeah, I'm not going to go into too much detail in our agency agreement. Obviously, I'm not going to share a contract widely,
Yeah.
but it is definitely set up in the agency agreement that we take the client on at first for the project we intend to be the first submission, and it will be listed. Then
Mhm.
is ongoing. Obviously, there are, and we want to go here, we could talk about termination, but there are ways to terminate, and that's explained. But there's never a need for the client to say, "Are we renewing?" It is ongoing once signed, unless there's termination.
It's like any relationship in some ways. So, yeah, it's one day at a time. Uh, Great. Well, you mentioned choosing editors earlier, Rebecca. Can you talk a little bit about that?
So again, one way, if I send out the email like Michaela's email, one way that I choose the editors to submit to is that I've already, laid groundwork in seeing who responds very strongly to um, that email, who says, "I love her work. Please make sure to send me anything." I mean, that's not complicated. It can be that easy. There are certainly times where there's more than one person from one imprint who responds that way. And then there's a lot, there's a lot of factors. There are, well, I know they already have a big bear book. Maybe that's a reason to not send them my bear book.
Mhm.
Um, Maybe it's, we're working so well together on something else. I see how this client responds, the kind of notes they give this client. I just know they know their way around a picture
Mhm.
book. There are some houses where you can submit to multiple editors. I mean, at different imprints. There are some where you should just submit to one editor. There are some smaller houses where there really is one person known for picture books, so they're going to get all of my picture book submissions. And it's
Mhm.
different, of course, when there are clients who already have had books published, and also, um, clients who are involved in SCBWI, of which I have many. Most often, they've met editors at conferences, or they have a sense as well. So that's very much a part of the conversation. If they come in saying, "I
Right.
really want to work with," or they've already responded very strongly to my work, that
Yeah.
is certainly taken into account.
Sure. Sure. Well, when one goes to the Writers House website. One is struck by all the illustration, all the art, how proud you are of your artists, and is it am I right in my impression that it seems like agencies and the top agencies are becoming increasingly interested in the art side of things? Have you seen it be this way for your whole 17 years, or is there a trend here? What's going on with that?
It's hard to say because, in part, I think I'm in a little, or not a little, bit of a writer's house bubble. So, and having been there for 17 years, I've certainly seen a lot of change in the children's book industry in general in 17 years. I mean, just think about what was being published 17 years ago, and stops along the way, what was winning awards, what was best selling. I do think so. Steve Malk specifically was started at Writers House a few years before I did, and was already representing illustrators and author illustrators of extreme caliber.
And he's a former editor himself, isn't he?
No,
he's not. No,
I'm really have a hole in my Steve Malk knowledge. No, he not that I'm sure here to talk all about Steve Malk. No.
I might have misheard.
We exchange congratulations emails today because we both have clients on the National Book Award long list. He's wonderful.
Congratulations.
No, his grandparents and then his parents owned different independent children's bookstores. So he grew up around authors and illustrators of children's books who came in to sign, and he grew up around children's books in that way. And then he worked for another agency, I don't think for very long, but he was not on the editorial side as far as I know. He was at a different agency briefly. And my background is, my mother and sister now, who's younger than me, both work in early childhood education. So in part, that's my connection to the young, to the picture books and the younger material. And I grew up in Chicago. I'm sure you can tell I don't have a New York accent. I have a very strong Chicago accent when when I hear myself on a recording, I can tell things like this. I can really tell. I know I was listening. We won't get into politics, but I was listening to Bob Woodward yesterday, and I was like, Illinois, I could tell. So I didn't grow up around people who were children's book editors, and I certainly didn't grow up around literary agents in the suburbs of Chicago. So I was making my way to New York and using a BA in English from Northwestern and wanting to be involved in publishing. That's my background. A little more of my
that's really cool to know.
To get back to your question, which was illustration, I do think that there has been a progressive change to more people, more agents interested in illustrators, picture books specifically. At the time I started taking on picture books, I was definitely told it was the hard road. I should go back and see kind of 12 years ago when I really transitioned from assistant to junior agent, and then 10 years ago to senior agent, what was on the bestseller list in terms of picture books and what was really working.
Can you talk about with the illustrators' portfolios on your website and cultivating relationships with editors who might need some of their imagery? How is that? Can you compare, contrast without going into contract stuff, but with the old art rep, the old role of the art rep who used to take 50% commissions?
I don't. I definitely have. I think I have a few clients who were previously with art reps. I don't want to speak to. I've never been an art rep. I've only been an agent, and I've worked at this agency for 17 years, and Steve was already, working with illustrators. It was always, we take 15% for all of our clients. It's no different. Client is a client. We do the same. I mean, the machinations of the work obviously are a little bit different, as they are for every client, actually, not categorically. But we did 15%. That's a very easy thing to talk about. And I think, to my knowledge, some of the distinction in an artist rep and an agent, so I'm sure there are, I don't speak for everyone, I speak for us, we don't take commission or seek out things that are not for books, first and foremost. So we're not, if a client came to me and asked, can you help me negotiate this deal? And it's happened for things like a wine label.
I see. Yeah.
Not, it's not all illustration that we represent. Now, if someone
No.
came to me and said, most of what I want to do is product. And
Yeah.
I have a book here or there. I would say I will represent you for the books. I can't devote, it's not my area of expertise, and I can't devote the time and energy to getting you product work. Now, I don't mean a Dragon's Love Tacos doll. That is subsidiary rights from the book. But what I really want to do is create designs or characters that have nothing to do with books or narrative for dish towels. I'm not the right.
Sure. Yeah. Children's clothing tags and things like that.
15% and then not editorial illustration that's not in a doesn't come from a book. We're not taking from every small.
But if somebody comes to you and says, we would like to use Vanessa or Danny Eccarino or Jarrett, we'd like to use his illustration work. We'd like to hire him as an illustrator. How does
if they want if someone comes to me and says, we have a manuscript, we would like any of those people to illustrate that. We are a publisher. Let me make that clear, because a lot of people get a lot of emails like, I've written a picture book about whatever. It's not sold anywhere, and I would like to hire your client. That's nope. If the text is sold and a publisher approaches me, I would like this person to illustrate, then I negotiate that deal. I send the manuscript. Usually it comes first with a manuscript and a pitch. And I send that to the client. Are you interested? Usually it also comes with some sense of the schedule in the pub season. And most often it is, there's no way. That person's very busy. They're working on their own author illustrator work. And I know that schedule isn't going to work. Even in those cases, unless a client explicitly says to me, do not send me manuscripts.
In which case you would send
an author illustrator right now, or don't send me anything and that would start before. Unless they explicitly say it to me, which really no one says, I send it, even if I'm sending it with something that says, I don't know how this schedule would work, but if you love this, let's try to figure it out. It's often a very quick, yeah, this is great, but I can't. Or I don't know, I don't see how I would illustrate this. It's not for me, but thanks. And so I'm the one who goes back and has to be the bearer of bad news in those cases and say, I'm sorry, but they're not available, or they just didn't totally fall in love with it enough to take it on. But if they say, yeah, that would work with my schedule, I'd love to work with that editor, that publisher, then I say, yes, they're definitely interested, the schedule works, and I ask for an offer, and then it's negotiated.
Just like it's a manuscript.
Anything where it is, we don't have leverage in finding other publishers who might be interested. The manuscript can only come from the publisher who has acquired the manuscript. So there isn't that opportunity for competition or auction, but it's a regular negotiation, like I'm negotiating the next book by an option book or any book that's submitted and only one person wants to acquire.
So it's like it's a literary product. It's part of the literary product, the art, and that's how you treat it. When people come to you at conferences, Rebecca, and ask you the money questions and ask you things like, can somebody make a living as a children's book illustrator? Really? I'm sure you must have some sort of answer to that just sort of without. We don't want to ask you money questions here, but how do you say about that?
My interest is in the business of books for my clients, and like I said, getting them the best deal possible. It doesn't always mean the most amount of money, because this is, relationship for the duration of the career. So I'm looking big picture, but finances certainly play a part. I wouldn't encourage anyone to expect to be making a living solely on being an illustrator or author illustrator of children's books. Certainly not in the first few years. I know I will work to. I mean, also I'm taking on clients who I believe that I can do well by financially.
Mm.
That I will get the best. That I will get offers. That I will get the best offers possible.
Yeah.
I'm not an accountant. My father was an accountant, so then again, there might be that, like,
My father was an accountant.
yeah, accountant's daughter, but also early childhood educator's daughter. So that
Yeah.
agent, meets in the middle of that Venn diagram. But I'm not an accountant, so I am not guaranteeing anybody, you can pay your rent or mortgage or buy a car or anything else. I would anticipate clients have a full-time, 9 to 5 job. I work, I don't expect anybody, well, why can't you do this full time? I would not, I wouldn't say that to somebody, like, why can't you take on this book if you have work commitments, you have life commitments.
Yeah.
I certainly have many clients who supplement income with school visits, and other book related opportunities. I hope that answers the question.
It does. It does. And we won't go into a lot of the things. You've already told us that you do work. You do try to get as many rights as you can. You've got a whole smorgasbord of rights that you'll be talking with people about. So we won't bog you down in questions about business like that so much, because they can go to the website and get a sense of those kinds of things. There are some questions about your vision, how you see the children's book publishing world changing. Are you selling more and more digital books? Are they going to supplant hardcover? Is it going to be book apps? Where do you see the industry going in 5, 10, 15 years?
I mean, who knows? I mean,
who knows? Yeah.
Doing the weeds, and I think the questions, there are certainly questions about retailers, about Barnes and Noble, about Amazon, and things like that, and and about audiobooks. I think, what I didn't know when I took the hard road of working on picture books, when I kind of selected that as my specialty or area of expertise, which is not hard and fast. I certainly work on middle grade. I certainly work on, occasionally on YA as well, and can work on whatever I want. There's no mandate at Writers House. Like, I could do adult if I wanted tomorrow, theoretically. But what I didn't know when taking the hard road of picture books is that as things evolve and change, what remains is as great as technology can be. There's something about an illustrated book, a physical illustrated book. And I think more and more, even outside of picture books, in illustrated middle grade YA, in packaging, in specs on books, the decision to have a deckled edge of a book, or, how important that cover is on a novel, anything, is that the physical book, especially in books for young readers, is so important. And, I don't think it's telling tales out of school that I have books that have sold very well. Picture books, middle grade, the percentage of those books that sell as ebooks is slim.
Is what?
Very slim.
Very slim. Okay.
The vast majority of books for middle grade and younger, barring, and I don't know that, I'm not privy to, Harry Potter exact numbers, or, a middle grade that is that kind of phenomenon. But the vast majority sell as picture books, and the technology is pretty great already.
Yeah.
So I don't know what would change
Yeah.
that only many more books would sell
Yeah.
somewhere other than a physical edition.
Yeah, because it's school library classrooms, that's not going to change for a while.
Absolutely.
And yeah, so that's a great point. I hope that answers you all's. Let's segue from questions to the shared folder,
Yeah.
and I'm sure Rebecca will be happy to answer some more questions
Yeah.
if we get time toward the end. But I don't see. Yeah, there's some questions about promotional swag, licensing, merch, so those kinds of things. But that's really any agency article can address those issues. We're here to understand Rebecca's MO. So we'll save the general questions for, you can catch that on the website. And let me go now to the folder, Rebecca, if that's okay with you.
I'm ready. Ready to
Okay, I'm going to share my screen. One of the most beautiful picture books I've ever seen in my life is the Undersea World of Jacques Cousteau by Dan Yaccarino that you represented. That is the most incredible book visually, I think, that I've ever seen.
I happen to have a piece of original art in my office from that book too.
Do you? It's a gorgeous book.
Again,
Uh,
illustrator clients, you guys have the upper hand. Like anytime you need to give an agent a holiday gift, what have you, that having the original art to
it's a keeper, isn't it? You'll hang on to those.
go shopping.
Stunning.
Shopping.
Good to know.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I'm going to let you tell me if do you have a strong feeling about which one you want to go through first in here?
I mean, I can call them up, or you can pick.
Go ahead and call them up from your list, and then I'll pull them up for you. How's that?
So, one more. I know I already gave somewhat of a disclaimer. We can go to the panda image. That's
okay. And okay.
One more disclaimer. I know I already started before the Q&A. One more disclaimer that I want to give is that I know that Vanessa's prompt was to depict opposites, and I will talk a little bit about the opposites, but I'm not going to evaluate on how well the images portray opposites. I'm sure Vanessa talked about that to some degree. And I don't think that gives as much insight into how I would view these images if they were in part of a potential client's portfolio. I wouldn't get, it's an exercise, of course. I understand there might have been limited time. I understand that you guys will want to fulfill that specific request. But when I'm looking at something in a portfolio, I'm not asking, did this fulfill a specific prompt? I'm saying, is this image something that draws me in? Do I see something in this that makes me want to know more about that book, or to consider this person as an illustrator client? So that's where I'm coming from. I understand there's some frustration because you're like, but what I was asked to do was, I'm just giving, again, I'm giving a different perspective.
Yes, good point.
And I also do think it's worth thinking about for similar prompts in the future or exercises. I would ask yourself always, is this something that I could put into a portfolio? Not just that answers and by no means am I saying these images couldn't go in a portfolio, they could, but does it speak to my style? Has it allowed me to stretch myself and do something that I'd be interested in doing in a book in the future? And I think what Vanessa does in having these two characters that look very opposite from one another in physicality enhances what she's already telling us about their dynamic, or contradicts what she's already telling us about the dynamic. The emphasis of these characters is not one is big and one is small. And it's not even one is clothed and one is a little bit not. It's the tension and the conflict is Lucy pulled the string, it unravels Hank's clothes. That's the tension. And the physicality and the way that she depicts them in illustration lends to that, gives us another layer of that story. it isn't the story. So that's something also to think about. When you choose a conflict, you choose characters, then I always say, and when I evaluate more often, text only at conferences, because I really don't represent, save for Andrea Beatty. She's the exception to the rule. She's Andrea Beatty.
Hmm.
She wrote Rosie Revere, engineer and Iggy Peck architect, and Ada Twist scientist. She can be the exception to the rule. She's my only author, picture book author only client.
Hmm.
But when I evaluate those texts, I often say, remember the illustrator. That's a mantra. Remember the illustrator, and allow them to tell a story that you're not telling in text.
Right.
And so as author illustrators, the same thing applies. Don't repeat in text and illustration. So find what that conflict is and who those characters are. What's the story you're going to tell? How do you tell it in the text, and how do you tell it in the art?
Yeah.
Where can you add another layer in the art? So here, where can you add a layer other than just opposites? How do you elevate that exercise from just a physical opposite to it adding another layer to the story? All right.
Great. That's great.
The poor Anne, who is the panda, is like, all right, let's go.
Let me make sure they can see the screen share. Okay, hang on one second. I had you up. Go ahead, Rebecca. Just keep talking, and I'll stop you if it turns out that they're not seeing the. I'm trying to share. Just trying to share my screen here.
As long as I'm not the one creating technical difficulties.
You are so smart to have somebody else do this.
I was like, what if I'm bumbling?
I bumble it every month. It's just
I'm seeing a bear.
Yeah, you and I are seeing the bear. I just want to make sure they can see the bear, and I think they certainly saw your emails and stuff. Let me check the seeing bottom of page. All right, let me try them one more time. I want to just make sure we've made this mistake in the past and gone through a whole critique and not actually been seeing the images. Okay, yes, I think we got it. Good. All right, we're back.
All right. So I'll be honest. The first two images I have in order are the first two images that Vanessa did in her talk, and then I had to turn it off and stop watching because I was like, I'm just going to go through the exact ones she went through. So we are starting with the first two. Maybe that'll create some parallel, and you can see where we.
Okay.
Where we
Fair enough.
But then I don't even know which one we talked about.
Right.
So my first thought in seeing this image is that there is definitely story here. My eyes go very quickly to the eyes of the panda. But beyond the focus of the panda's eyes, I don't think we're learning that much about the panda as a character. Not necessarily good or bad. It's just evaluation. I think we're learning a little bit about the character of what I assume is a child. We're seeing a sense of determination in the body language and the positioning, but we don't learn much more. The palette here is also very limited, and of course it would be for a panda, where I mean, I've seen crazier things in children's books, but I'm guessing that is not of interest to the illustrator here. So in that case, I think there is still some opportunity to add color, not just for color's sake, but for contrast and to bring narrative clarity. I think as much as we can distinguish the child character from the panda, I think that would be helpful. Imagining this image as a spread in a picture book, I think it's a great idea. I think it's a great idea throughout a picture book to vary the design and layout. And I'm assuming the entire book is not as zoomed in this close. But I do think it's a very arresting image and would be very interesting to see among images that were kind of where the perspective was pulled back, or even vignettes, or one-page images.
Good.
Out of a larger context of a picture book, in a portfolio, without anything else from that book in the portfolio, I do, and in the way we're looking at it, I ask the artist to consider how it reads, and again, if there would need to be some contrast and maybe more context in a book. And by the way, this illustrator, for any illustrator, you definitely can choose. You can see, I highly recommend playing around on for everybody on the Writer's House site, and you can see where clients have chosen to include 2 or 3. I wouldn't include more than 3 images from any one book in a portfolio. But you certainly can give more context if you choose to by including a few more. I wonder, in the context of a book, if this is a wordless spread, it's so just complete this image, and being so zoomed in, I think it would work wonderfully as a wordless spread. But if that's not the intention, and again, I think this is less important, obviously, one, for this exercise, but also in a portfolio. But in the context of a book, I would wonder, where does the text go? Again, this is it might seem very technical and business, but is the white space, some of the white space on the panda, is text going to go there? And if not, if that to the illustrator disrupts the image, then I think there needs to be a little bit more zooming out and space outside of the panda to lay text. So those were my, I know because I watched this one, very different than Vanessa kind of comments, but that's what came to mind.
Okay, great, very good, very good.
For sharing it.
All right, where would you like to go next?
You can go to Becky V's.
Now, Becky, Becky, you're here, aren't you, in the call? Your image of the shaved sheep dropped out. So if you're, can you, and I couldn't find it, I emailed you.
Back to it if we want to skip.
Yeah, so Becky, if you're here, let us know in the chat that you've uploaded it, and I'll get it and grab it and put it back in, get it up in Rebecca's file. But until then, I just couldn't see it. I refreshed the page. I did everything I could all afternoon, and I don't know what happened to that image.
We can skip around. We can go to the second image here then, Beth.
Okay. And I wasn't sure which of the 2 Beth images you liked.
The first one.
Okay.
I like them both. We're not like, not value, but that's the one I'd like to see too. So there's a lot that I like about this image. I think the relationship between the 2 characters is very clear, and it elicits feelings from the reader. And again, in this kind of, when I see things in a portfolio, some of it is just that instinctual and emotional, frankly. And I think there's still strategy that I will respond emotionally. An adult who's buying a book for a child hopefully will respond emotionally, and the child themselves will hopefully respond emotionally. So I love the details of the adult's hands down at her sides, and the child's hands in the air, and a foot too. I love that the child's hat has fallen off or flown off. I love the orange/red onesie. And, so I do, for that kid, feel like, well, why can't that kid have their bare feet in the grass? But I was really studying the image. So there's nothing wrong with it. And I assume these could also be pajamas, and so I love that this child is maybe wearing pajamas outside. The rendering of the grass is really wonderfully juxtaposed with how the sky is rendered and that swirl. Yeah. But I will be honest and say that I noticed the shadows after taking in people, and maybe that's me, and maybe there's some sort of, you know, psych major would have fun with that. I don't know. But I did. And I think if I did want to be curious if other people, that's the same. And if it's important to the story, which I think it could be, that the reader or viewer notices those shadows first, or definitely that notices them very clearly. And we have to think about if it's being read in a book, how the adult is showing the image to the child and how quickly the page is being turned. So it's very important to notice those shadows and think about how to emphasize them and how to draw the reader's eye to them kind of quickly. I do think the vertical nature of the page, I do think we are drawn there, but we're drawn there secondarily.
So you're saying you want us to be brought into the story, whatever it is, right away, and that would do it.
I think again, I think it depends on the intention of the illustrator or the author illustrator. If there's text that really highlights those, those shadows, that can also serve as a cue, certainly, to make sure the shadows. So it's not inherently a problem. I'm just saying, as I looked at it, the shadows were secondary for me. And maybe that's just, shadows are one color. Like there's so much vibrant. So I'm not asking to take away that vibrant red orange, but that's what my eye is drawn to. So, but and I wonder. And again, the question doesn't need to be answered in this one image, because again, the text might help tell this story. But I wonder if the shadow is meant to depict how outsized the child's energy and persona are, and it's metaphor kind of for the child's energy, and that's the opposite. So one appears small but is outsized energy, and large but it has a smaller energy. Or it might be that in this story, the child is telling a story about, a different character with long fingers and what have you. I can't tell if there is maybe a tail there. So I would just want to know more. It's not good or bad. It's not on one image to tell everything. Certainly within a picture book or within a portfolio. Then, if this wasn't a book, I would wonder where the text would appear and what it would say.
Okay. This is becoming an issue. Think about those text blocks as a design element, guys.
I think look at our Writer's House portfolio. I think there is something different from portfolio to book. But when you're thinking about if this is part of a larger story and you're including it in a dummy, I submit, I don't know if Mark will share at the end of the YouTube or somewhere, or if Vanessa already did the full dummy that we submitted with Lucy on the String, but you will see it's designed. The design is going to change with a professional designer. I'm not expecting my clients to be designers of books, but though I do have one who was, Scott Magoon. He is now full-time as an author, illustrator, but he was a book designer at Candlewick and HMH. But I don't expect the dummies to be perfectly designed, but the text should be laid in.
Because it's a book. You're selling the book, not art. Yeah.
Strategically, I want editors and everyone at the publishing house to envision the book. So at that stage, not in portfolio, but at that stage, this image, if it wasn't a wordless page, would need to have room for the text.
Okay.
And it might be able to, go amongst the grass if the shadow is moved up a bit. It's not wouldn't require necessarily a total reworking, but it's something.
Yeah. Okay. Let me make sure everybody can still see. Are they guys? Are you seeing it? Let me make sure they can. So we see why Rebecca is referring to it. So you're not seeing. Are you seeing the? I'm going to put the link to Rebecca's folder up on the chat, guys, so that you can go right to the folder as she's talking and maybe see a bigger version of the image. We want to make sure you guys can see. You're not seeing the screen share? Let me get in there. there's the link. So if you click that link, let me just test it right to the same folder Rebecca's looking at, and you can see the, okay, yeah, so you guys can go there and see the images in the folder, right? I know not now. I know it's blank now, but I'm going to check back with you in a minute to make sure you can see. And let me, okay. Okay, we'll go on to the next. Let's
go to the squirrel and the crow right in the middle there.
Okay.
Okay. So I like this image because it's so unexpected, and I think there's something about the unexpected in children's books, in picture books and illustrated work that's very compelling, very quickly compelling. Like, how did this happen? What's the situation here? I think, your children also are interested in the unexpected. And while it's unexpected, it's very clear what these characters are thinking and feeling. It's very well depicted in the rendering. I think, very well done on the look in the crow's eyes and that very, very simple white space and pupil and the position of looking down. We certainly, it reads, and so there's narrative there. And the expression of the squirrel, eyes closed, smile, blush, is very clear also. Just on a kind of technical and craft level, I'm fascinated by that squirrel's tail. I think that's just really well rendered, and I love that we can see through it to the wing. And I'm curious if the illustrator is in the chat. I would just love to know about the technique if you want to just
okay, yeah, we would.
Tail, and also like the talons are excellently rendered here. As I've said, I think this shows a very interesting, unexpected, and compelling dynamic, and it could be very interesting as an inclusion in a portfolio. But from a picture book perspective or a book perspective, if I'm looking at this image as part of or a portfolio or singularly from a literary agent perspective, this could be a print or a character study. I don't know that I see this as it is, and again, I get that this is an exercise, there might not have been time, etc., but I'm giving you agent perspective. I don't see this necessarily as an image that comes out of a book. And this is going to come up again and again. It's in part because and I know Vanessa is the exception to the rule because she did this so well, but in most cases, a plain white background elicits the sense that this is a standalone image, that the story that you're telling has been told entirely here, and it's not part of a larger world. It's not part of a larger book. So I would, and I'm going to say this, it's going to come up a lot from now on. Excuse the broken record, but I want to hammer it home. Think about that. I'm sure you will go onto the Writer's House site and you'll say, but this one, and all of Vanessa's books. But I doubt that you will see, even in Vanessa's portfolio, I know you won't see that all the images are characters on a plain background. It's very important and I don't know if other people have brought this up before, but it's very important to get the sense of characters, their dynamic, and in a situation, which is with a background with a larger story at play. Again, obviously, I would wonder what text would accompany this image, if any.
Yes. Okay. Good.
So we can move on.
What about in a portfolio, a signature on the illustration piece?
I mean, listen, if this came as the postcard and it was there, I wouldn't think twice. Certainly on the Writer's House website, I don't think that maybe with some exception, you would see a signature because it's already that you're, going and clicking on that person's name.
Yeah.
And then going to their images, and then at the top, you'll see there are 2 pages with 9 thumbnails. You'll see their name. You'll see my name, or whomever the agents for that particular client is, and you'll see a link to their website. So I don't think on the image itself there is a need for a signature. And on your own site or your own blog, I don't think there's a need either.
Got it. Okay, great. Let me make sure you guys can see. Seeing artwork only now. Okay, but you're seeing it now, guys, right?
Artwork only, I think, is
okay.
Okay, right?
I think we're good. So I'm going to go back. But I think Rebecca, have you already sent in your image? Did you find and send in your image? Okay. Let me give me a comment on that, Becky, and let's make sure we get your in there. And everybody's saying they can see it now, Rebecca. So good. We're good. All right. I'm going to go back to the.
Oh, we can go back.
I'm going to go back to the big spreadsheet. Which one would you like to see next?
We can do if that's up, or we can go to that at the end, and we can go to Jamie's take 2.
Which one do you want to see?
At the bottom.
Going to the bottom, we got Natalie and Jamie.
Yeah.
Want to put up Jamie's?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. I like this image very much, and I can see it in a graphic novel or a highly illustrated novel. It very clearly portrays messy versus neat, or freewheeling versus meticulous, if you want to get some syllables in there. I wonder how much of what is depicted here would already be explained in the text, in part because in a graphic novel or an illustrated novel, there's a lot more text. So the balance of text and art isn't the same as in a picture book, and the text is going to do, more heavy lifting, even in a graphic novel where it's fully illustrated.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder how this image is advancing the story. This also might be an example of spot art in a novel. Spot art more often is echoing what is being told in the text rather than telling a story that's not told in the text. And I love the composition here, but I do wonder what we're missing by not seeing the girls. I assume they're both girls. Faces. Mm-hmm. So again, this is one image out of larger context, we might know very well if these are 2 images of the same girl, if they're it's one image of twins, if they're friends, etc. But without a larger context, I wonder: are we losing something by not? Are we losing some of the narrative by not seeing the girls' faces? In general, what I would say is kind of a general portfolio comment that I think this gives the opportunity to discuss is that I would have at least one black and white image in your portfolio for any illustrator who has any interest in doing interiors, which interiors usually means, not picture book interiors, which are full color, but black and white interiors in in a middle grade or a YA novel, and certainly if it's an author illustrator who has any interest in doing a graphic novel or highly illustrated novel that would be rendered in black and white.
Right, great. Notebook of Doom, Diary of a Wimpy Kid,
sure.
Chapter books, yeah. All right, let's go back to the keeps thinking I want to rename it. Let me make sure, guys, that
rename them things that make no sense. We're just gonna get creative.
She did upload. Okay, so let's go. Can we go to Becky's? She says she did upload the sheep. So let's go back to that, and let's find that naked sheep. And there it is. All right.
All right. I think it's good. I think, maybe it was fate that it wasn't the first, because then the only thing I did in the same order, as far as I know, was the first image of the panda. I think this is a wonderful choice of medium, the watercolor in what we assume is a beach scene. I assume that sheared sheep is carrying a beach bag with a towel rolled up. I love the details that give so much information about character here. The confusion of the sheep, the woollier sheep here in the tilt of a head, and I just think that there's a sense of confidence in the sheared sheep, also looking in another direction from the woolly sheep, and with the glasses also, like there's something about the glasses that also, like, that she can clearly see where it is headed with intent. I wonder, again, what text would accompany this image. I think there's so much communicated here in the image already that I wonder how text can further this part of the story. How does this image fit within the larger conflict of the story? What would that conflict for the larger story be that's not just told in this one image? Again, I think this image speaks so loudly and singularly that it almost looks like a New Yorker cartoon to me, except it's
Yeah.
powerfully rendered and in color, but it just speaks volumes. And so again, that gives me the sense that it's more of a print, or just an image that doesn't exist within a larger context. And again, I might get that sense because it's not a fully realized background. And maybe all we need for the background to be fully realized is for that blue sky to bleed all the way out. But this white space, what that communicates to me is that this image is self-contained.
Oh.
So that's something I would think about, including this in a portfolio.
Okay, good. Yeah. Okay.
We can go to Courtney's. We can take your pick, but I have.
Okay, let me go up to the top, back to your folder, and we'll go to Courtney's.
Yes.
Okay.
All right. Okay. I love this bear, and I'm very picky about my bears, and partial to a good bear, as we know from Vanessa's work. I would love to know about the medium used here, and I also want to know more about the bear's little hat and that compass logo. I think that's such a great detail. I love that one of the bear's eyes is closed and the other is wide open and behind the magnifying glass, and technically it's very well rendered. It seems to me that the bear is very much a character in the story this image comes from. And it also seems that the dragonfly is not as much of a character. I think, there's clearly characteristics and depiction of the bear, in that it's wearing a hat, it's holding a magnifying glass, and the dragonfly is acting like a dragonfly. And it might be by design that the bear is depicted in an anthropomorphized way and the dragonfly is not. But I just bring it up because I think it's important to be clear about the rules of the world that you are creating in a book. And this might very well be a world in which the bear acts like a child, and every other animal, insect, etc., acts like they are found in nature. But that should be clear. There shouldn't be any, and I'm not saying it's just one image here. So that's not an issue for the one image, but in a larger context, it should be clear. You don't want the reader, especially a young reader, confused. A young reader will, and an adult reading a picture book as well, will accept a bear acting like a person. But if sometimes the animals act like people and sometimes they don't, etc.,
Mm.
It leaves you on shaky ground. So
Oh, it's
this
really
is the opportunity to give a kind of more general illustration note. It's not that there's something that's not that's unsuccessful here. That's not the case.
yeah.
Again, I love the composition as it is, but I wonder if it's worth sacrificing the effect. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm on something else. In my notes. Sorry, let's go back to that. I do love the composition here, and I love particularly the almost the way that your eye travels along with the bear's eye in a way. We notice because it's the bear is at top of page, and just this kind of diagonal nature of the composition, we travel kind of from the top of the page through the magnifying glass and towards the dragonfly. So we're looking the way that the bear is looking. That's really well done. I don't want that composition to be lost, but again, I wonder about background. Maybe this image has a plainer background, but maybe it's a solid color, but not necessarily white, unless, like Vanessa, you're going to achieve a whole book kind of in this void, and we're really just focusing on the characters. If there's a larger background, I would implore you not to disturb that diagonal composition and the way that our eye travels. Again, if there were text on this page, where would the text go? And right now, there is room at the bottom of the page, but I would want the illustrator to think about the composition. If the text is on the bottom of the page, does our eye travel in the same way? So maybe this is a wordless, maybe this is a page on the right side of a spread and the text is on the left side. This is just one page. So again, I'm just continuing to think about and asking you to think about layout and design, especially when the image itself is already so well illustrated.
Great. Okay. Please go back to the and let me just check and make sure you guys are still seeing okay. I think they can. Okay. Scream at me, guys, or call me if you're having trouble seeing. All right.
We can go down to Natalie's, yeah.
Okay.
So guess what? There's background here. I love it. And I hope, that you guys can see now that we're seeing an image that's in context with a background, how much that helps give narrative and how much that helps to tell the story and put the characters in a larger situation. It's not just these two characters. I think also here, the background does a lot of heavy lifting, and the line work is so simple, and simple is not a bad thing, especially in children's books. I love simple and stripped of excess, what's unnecessary. The facial expressions of these characters with a very simple line is very expressive and very telling. I love that the opposites at play here are adventurous and afraid. I think those opposites lend themselves to conflict in a way that Big Little, for example, don't necessarily. So when I was talking about those Bears and Vanessa's, there's already, we're right there with conflict in this image. And because they're not so wildly different physically, they're different in how they're responding to their situation. Even in black and white, I love the use of light in this image. And that's, hard to achieve, might seem hard to achieve in black and white, but it's successful in the light emanating from this lantern. I do wonder if there's the intention to add color. Black and white, to me, signals that this is a piece from a book, if it's a piece or to be a piece from a book, that it is a book for older than picture book readers. So if that's the intention for it to be a picture book, again, time might have been a factor here. Not that it looks unfinished; it looks finished. But if it's the intention is for it to be a picture book, I wouldn't put it in the portfolio as black and white. I would put it in the portfolio as full color if it is, and it very well can be a image for a book for older readers. I'm just curious what the comp titles would be. You know, I'm curious what the query letter would say, that this would be a book for readers who like what. I want to know more. So I think this is really well done. Thank you. We can go to right above to the manatee.
Okay.
I love this image of the manatee and the clownfish, and I also think I didn't expect when I was told that I was going to do these reviews that what I would talk about again and again is background, but it became a running theme, and I like a theme. So I think this is interesting to talk about, given this motif of background, because this is a very simple background, but so it doesn't need to be complicated, but this puts these characters in a context, even if it's an expected context of in the water. But this image, even with that simple background, well, it could be beautiful to have on your wall as a print. It says to me that this could come from a picture book. It's
Yeah.
a picture book with, very simple. Not to say it's not an achievement what was rendered, but simple setting, expected setting. Again, I think the color scheme, when we certainly see from what Vanessa did, color scheme can be simple, and here, we really see this contrast of color of, um, cool, cold colors and warm color. So I don't want anyone to get the sense that there has to be a wildly detail-rich environment for there to be context, or that kind of stripped down. I know watercolor is never really stripped down or easy, not to my mind, and I have utmost respect for those who work in watercolor, like my client Matt Phelan does. So I don't want, simple is not disparaging, but simplifying is certainly welcome, and I think it's extraordinarily well achieved here. I love the happy expression of the manatee, again with simple line or brushwork, and the big round surprised eye of the fish. Even that small, I think we get a sense of feeling. I love the shadow of the manatee, and that the fish isn't even seemingly big enough to create a shadow. And I like that these characters are not necessarily, I don't know certainly from this image, but I like that they're not necessarily anthropomorphized. I think this could go either way, and that's interesting. I don't think every animal character needs to be to act human, and I certainly would want to know more about the story and these characters. I think this is well achieved.
Yeah, great. All right, Doreen. All right. So let me make sure everybody can see. Yeah, they're seeing it. That's great. Okay.
We're on the last two.
We are. We're doing well.
We can go to Doug's Taylor.
Okay.
So I chose this one in part because of the use of perspective here. Look how big the man looks from the vantage point where we, the reader, are seeing him. I think that's really well done. There is definitely narrative here. There's storytelling. We can see action. We can see the action of the man, the tailor, lifting the cup, even though it took place before what is depicted in this image. We can also see the action of the mouse genuflecting. The expression here in the mouth and eyes of the man is so telling. There's context, there's background again. We can tell that there's kind of wallpaper in the background. There's a shelf, there's cups. We get a sense of size and dimension here.
Yeah.
From this image, it seems like the man could be the main character. Clearly, the mouse is anthropomorphized. And I wonder if she is a childlike character. I'm assuming she by the dress. And, I want to think, this is a general comment for picture book, anyone who's an illustrator or author illustrator, is to think about the importance of having a child character or a child substitute. And child can be an anthropomorphized animal who is a child. And that the old man could be the main character of this book in the way that Jarrett's lunch lady is very much an adult, or Amelia Bedelia is very much an adult, but is the child substitute. So I'd be curious to know more.
Great.
And lastly,
all right, let's see.
We'll go to Diane's opposites. Oh, so the image that I saw previously here is the same in the illustration, but there was text when I saw it.
Do you want to look at that one?
There's very simple text. I don't think it's 100%. I mean, if it's easy to pull up, but I don't think it's 100% necessary. I just think that while we don't normally include text on the Writers House site, I think it helps seeing some brief text here as an example.
Okay. Oh, hang on one second. I'll find it. Unless Diane, you've taken it down. No, they don't seem to have text anymore.
So I just want to speak to what the added text does. I think it helps to see some brief text.
Let me make sure I'm not missing it. I'll jump again. I'm sorry I'm being so jumpy tonight, guys. Let's see. I just think I see the one. Well, maybe she can upload it and you guys can look at it in the morning and look at it in terms of Rebecca's comments. Now there it is. Okay, we'll pretend there's text on it and you can describe it to us.
So there was very brief text going, kind of following the line.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Saying something like fishes up, fishes out, fishes down, something like that. So we normally don't include text in the Writers House site, but I think it helps, again, to get that sense of where the space is for it, etc. It makes it feel like a spread. That it could be a full spread out of a dummy, more so than other images, because we have a sense of what the text is and how the text interplays with the illustration. So I also like that we see so much action in this image, not one static image. It may be also that this is one spread and these are 3 different fish, but I don't believe so. I believe that this is the same fish moving, and that there could be, a gutter, which is what we call, where the binding is, the middle of a spread. And this could be read as 2 pages. It could be read as one full spread or 2 pages. Sorry. So also with this image, the child is guided not just by where the text was, but by the position of the duck. So we're reading left to right, down. We're reading down, and then we're reading, and then we were reading, and our eyes scanning up and back down, left to right. It seems like the spread out of a very young picture book. I would question, what is the story here? It seems from this sample that there is not much of a narrative or conflict, and the text gave me that sense as well. And just in terms of market, concept books are a hard sell. They're hard to break out in the current market. So, I think this is a successful image, but I would wonder if this is a book for very young readers and it doesn't have a conflict or a narrative so much as exploring, movement of the fish or something like that, that would be a harder sell.
Great. Okay. Super. Super. My gosh. Well, I keep clicking that wrong button. It's nearly 9 o'clock where Rebecca is. So we've kept her.
I can talk.
We've kept her extra long. Text is up, she said. Oh, well, let's take one quick look at Rebecca's with the text, and she did let me see if I can pull it up real fast. Yeah, just so to refresh ourselves what she's talking about. And here's the other one. Duck is up. So good. So that gives you an idea. If I'm still screen sharing, if you can still see it. Can you see it, Rebecca?
Yes.
What you were talking about.
No, this is the one I think you guys saw.
This one?
The other one.
This one?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's what I remember seeing last month too. Great. Okay, thanks for getting that up, Diane. And let's take one more question. Or can you take 2 more questions from the group, Rebecca? And then we need to let you get back because you've got a book on the National Book Award list. You got your work cut out for you now. Guys, so we'll take, I'm scanning quickly for the last urgent question. And while I'm waiting for that last urgent question to come in, Rebecca, any thoughts on digital versus traditional? Is there room for both still, or are things changing so fast?
No, again, I think in picture books and highly illustrated work that the print is king and queen, and digital is digital as a medium. I'm sorry. Could you ask the question again?
Yes, digital versus traditional in terms of submissions you like to see in your office.
The final product being an ebook versus.
Yeah, we were talking about that, weren't we?
I think I think digital illustration and the way it's viewed has come a very long way. And I think that there's wonderful digital art out there. I think the way that something is submitted, if I were submitting, I would send it electronically. Mm-hmm. You're not sending original art on submission, so it's being reproduced anyway, and it's just all around easier. It's cost effective. It's easier to keep track of. Yeah.
So whether you do it in digital or traditional mediums, you like to see submissions. It makes sense for submissions and to be in digital format. Yeah. Certainly.
And also I got Vanessa's physical postcard, and then I went online.
Yeah, you did both. Yeah, physical postcard and online. Great point. There are comments in the text chat, Rebecca, about how much they have enjoyed this and how much they loved your comments. And this really has been a fascinating time with you, a wonderful class full of brilliant insights, so much to think about, so much emphasis on story and literature. We're telling stories with our pieces, really big thoughts. We're all going to want to watch this more than once or twice, I think.
That's a lot. Thanks for sticking with it, guys.
No, it was fantastic, and we sure loved it, and we appreciate it so much. We feel like you've been giving us a private consult in your Manhattan office. That's what it feels like from our end. So thank you very much for that. We're going to let you go and give your evening back to you, what little is left of it. And we thank you again. And the replay is up, going to be up, guys, as soon as this processes. So I think in the next few minutes, you'll be able to see the whole thing. And Rebecca, I'll try to make a copy of the text chat transcripts and ship it to you so you can, when you get a chance, read their comments and just see what all the nice things they were saying. And again, we appreciate it very much. And Vanessa, thanks for joining us. Thank Allie for us too. And we will say goodnight. I'll send you a quick email after this, Rebecca, but we'll say goodnight and thanks for hanging in with us, guys.
My pleasure. Thanks, everyone.
We got one more Girllustrator workshop next month, and so details to be announced soon, and then we'll have one more follow-up session in in November, and where we'll look at everybody's pieces one more time. So we'll say goodnight. We'll let Rebecca say goodnight. And
Good night.
good night. Bye-bye now.
Bye.
Bye.